Well, that sounds bad. You guys heard the noise. Sounded bad. It had a lot of bad. But it looks like the main engine's okay. I got here's just an indicator. I've pulled these two pistons and rods. These bearings, they look new. I really am not. I'm not concerned with these bearings. And everything moves freely. The big issue was lifters. And these must be a bush lifter because when I drained the oil out of this thing, it looked like Gold Rush. And I didn't think we had much hope. But apparently these must have been bushed. And they did not survive for whatever reason. See the slack in them? And one whole bank is like that, and a couple on the other bank is like that. So, I think we can safely say that the noise was lifter. The noise was also somewhat throw-up bearing, and the center bearing was gone. We just had a whole lot of stuff coming apart. End of the season. She's been beat on. Time for a freshen up. I'm not going to get in a panic about fixing it because snow's coming, so I'm going to pull it down. I'll show you a couple things I want to do to it over the course of the winter. And put it back together in the spring. Shouldn't be too big of a deal. Definitely need a new set of lifters. Probably a new cam. I may send that cam down and just have it dressed at comp. I'll check that. It really has hardly any marks on it, surprisingly, for what the noise was. But I'll just show you guys here what I'm looking at. So just to give you an indicator, see those big gold chunks? I don't know what this chunk is. Well, I guess that's a chunk of gasket. You got some big pieces down in there. You know? It looks bad. Those had to have been bush lifters. One other thing that was really noisy was this throw-up bearing. This is gone. I mean, there's no rollers left in it. Center bearing was gone. But obviously, and the valve lash wasn't that far out is the strange part, but see how nice that crank still looks brand new. It's all, so far no issue. One thing I look for, discoloration in rods. I want to see this side thrust motion is not tight on any of them. So nothing has got hot. It really doesn't look like anything is spun. Had it spun, it would have fed some crap through those other bearings. I think she's healthy. Now I am going to pull it apart because it's always breathed just a little bit more than I thought it should. And I think I want to hone this thing. I didn't have the deck plate when I honed it. And because this block, and normally I never worry about these little end blocks, but this block has been decked 200 thousandths. And I can see polish marks where I torqued the heads. So I need to re-hone this thing with the deck plate. And I may even stick the same rings back in. I'll see how they all look when I tear it apart. But that'll happen this winter. For sure, lifters will happen this winter. And maybe a different cam. I'm going to call down to comp and just see about that cam for street driving. Because it is huge. It's a 760 lift. With a fairly hard spring to control it. Because we turn it pretty high RPM. We turn it 8,000. So I got to see if I may need to change cam profile to have it live on the street, but normally the bush lifters are supposed to be good, but in this case they were not. So, but it doesn't look like it cost me an engine. It just looks like it cost me a little work. So, not the end of the world. Well, we're gonna pop some main caps off here. I already pulled this one. It looks just brand new. If you'll see, just very slight. Nothing to worry about. The crank is brand new. I mean, I'm pleasantly surprised, because I wouldn't have given you high hopes for this crank. When I saw the oil that came out of it, it looked bad. And not sort of bad. It looked really bad. These splayed cap deals, you have to pull these side bolts out to get them to come loose. We're going to check them all. Probably leave the crank right in the motor, because I have to. I'm just going to store this thing for a while. Oh yeah. Just like new. I'm going to reuse these bearings. If they all look like this, there's no point buying new ones. If I put a new one in it, it's going to look exactly like that with 5 minutes of run time. So, no advantage in spending that money. If I thought there was, I'd spend it. But when it comes to bearings and stuff, I just soon be a little careful. It's not a good place to be stingy, but in this case, it's not being stingy. These things, if I put a brand new one in it and run it, it'll look the same. I gotta say, with the amount of steel, or not steel, but brass that was floating around here, the old Wix filter did its job. Yeah, really nice. No problems. Which is awesome. I don't want problems here. The other thing to remember with these things is put these splayed bolts in first, because you get these ones in, you can't put the splayed ones in. So trying to keep these washers in place. They want to stay in the oil. This thing, oil was doing its job in this engine. We had oiling, well, good oiling everywhere. So oiling, another perfect bearing. That's very impressive, all things considered. Because when I saw the oil running out of it, I figured she was pooched. I really did. That torquing compound definitely colors your hands up. And what's the final result? Look at that. Bye. That's really good. Crank's brand new. I mean, hell. That is awesome. I got really lucky. Really lucky. I won't torque them. I'll just run these bolts back down, and I'll show you what I was talking about in the bores, and we'll discuss what to do with this. My hone is not as, I know a guy's got a lot better hone than I have, and sometimes I use him. He's a buddy of mine. We work a lot together. I may just take this over there and ask them to hone it. And they'll deck plate it. I need to, I'll show you what I need to do first. And then I'll make sure that's all done. So when it goes to get honed, everything is done. I don't have to do any more work to it. It comes home, gets assembled, that's it. And that's probably the best thing to do. Well, anyway, I'll show you that. So you see the cylinder bores. You get a hot spot, a hot spot, a hot spot, a hot spot, everywhere. All those correspond with a bolt. So obviously when that's torqued, it's changing the hell out of that cylinder. What happened is this block was decked like 200 thousandths. It was decked a crazy amount. It's pulled way down to the water pump hole. So, I mean, it's cut. And I don't know what the theory was there, but somebody really got into it. So, obviously these decks are weaker, which is something to consider in the future when buying these blocks. But it hasn't bothered. I mean, I've got a good head gasket seal. I'm going to keep running it. But these bolts down here, I had to helicoil a few of them. I'm not going to continue with helicoil. I'm going to put those better inserts in. So I'm going to fix all of those because these were all kind of weak. I didn't really want to torque right. This side actually I think is all good. There's one maybe helicoil there. Looks like it, yeah. So I'll probably swap that out. I think I'll sort of check them all. If there's any indication of an issue, I'm just going to go ahead and helicoil them. Or not helicoil them, but I'll put the inserts in them. And have a better job of that. And then we'll figure out what we're going to do for this hone. If you see in the bottom there, there's scuffing too, which may be the biggest issue. I think that was just from it running too lean when we put it in. Because it would actually run around all right till you got up in the RPM, but the fuel pump was too weak. And it was starving it. And the plugs didn't matter how much jet I put in it, the plugs would just keep coming back white. There's actually a video where we're at the track with this car doing that. So I have to do something about that scuffing, and I have to do something about these spots. So like I say, if it's home to the torque plate, that'll simulate the torque of the head through these bolts, and that will cut it so it'll be the same as it's honed when it's torqued, which will solve that. I don't think these little spots are really in themselves why the engine breathes a bit, but it's just an indicator of an issue that definitely torque plates probably will help. And then this down in here, I don't think is because of torque plates. I think that's because of being lean and scuffing. But be that as it may, I would have kept running it. It wasn't as bad as you might think, but I'm gonna keep running it. Or I would have kept running it, but under the circumstances, I thought a little bit about tearing it out and fixing it this winter. And those lifters made my decision for me. But all the lifter bores look fine. I mean, everything was oiled like crazy up here. It's just a failure. I don't know why. And they were a Crower Bush lifter. So, they weren't cheap. They weren't junk. Now, I did buy them used. But they were tight when I bought them. And the guy I got them from, I know him. He runs a seasoned dirt car and sells that stuff. And I bought a lot of his stuff. And it's good, but I don't know if the Bush lifters aren't suitable to street driving. Because I had like an hour and a half drive. See that slack? And I mean, I got some that are really slack. I had an hour and a half drive that I was doing with trying to take this thing to the track when they failed. There. See that? Pop. So, I don't know. Maybe the bush lifters get hot. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to make some calls, actually try and learn a little bit about that. And I want to put it back together so I don't have to tear it back out again next year. So, that's, we'll just try to make it a little bit better, but it's not going to be a big deal. Everything's ready to rock. Heads are all still good. Everything's still good. So, even the cam, it didn't get buggered up as much as you might think. The lobes look pretty fair. So I'll wrap it up so it doesn't get banged around here. And we'll, like I say, we'll worry about it kind of a little after my fall rush is done. And I'll try and get it together for early spring, so I can have my hot rod back. And I'll probably service the old Jericho while it's out and all that stuff too.
Yeah, that does look good.
Mains are new too.
Were those coated or not even?
Yeah, those are coated bearing.
I was gonna say. Huh.
Or the XD bearing. We'll just keep all that. This cam though I thought was okay, but it is not. It has a hollow spot. Look at this lobe.
So your lifters caused failure.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, look at that.
That's very eaten.
Yeah, Yeah, I brought it out here where it was good light, and there's another one over here that's pretty well pooched. And I mean, they'll regrind those cores, but it wouldn't have a lot of lift left.
What's the point? Like,
I don't know what they even charge for that. It's probably
more than the cam.
Probably cheaper just to buy a cam. But I might make a call though and just see about that lifter failure. And see if they suggest something running a cam that big on the street for a lifter that... My feeling is that long drive, those bushings, I don't know, got hot or something. Even though they're getting a lot of oil. I mean, I get crazy oil up there.
But they're weird the way they feel, those lifters too, because those lifters, you can spin them and the wheels feel fine. And you have to force against the axle, and then you can get all kinds of slack.
Yeah, I know.
So it's like we checked the lifters, but we never forced against the axle to check for...
Check it, look at that pan. Look at all the shit that's in it.
Oh, I saw it. It's like gold rush.
Yeah. Amazing, the bearings. I got to say, that oil filter did a damn good job.
Yeah, very.
I'll give it credit where credit's due.
Yeah, I think you need to thank your officer for sure.
Yeah. I was afraid I was going to be buying a crank and a couple rods. But got away with it.